Just before the final snowcat was about to depart, my husband held my access badge over the terminal. A red light flashed, and an automated voice announced that the card's privileges had been revoked. Nolan Vance dropped the signed divorce papers at my feet. Get back to the hotel by 1:00 a.m. If you're late, you sign this too. Beside him, Riley Mercer chuckled while stroking her hair. You can walk, right, Mrs. Vance? The snow will cool your head. Left behind at the summit of Aspen Peak, I used the red emergency phone to call for rescue and had them patch me through to my emergency contact. Grandpa, the Sterling Holdings audit. Please don't stop it. I won't stop it anymore either. The emergency phone's recording light blinked red at my eye level. On the other end of the line, my grandfather, Arthur Sterling, held his breath for just a second. Tell me your location. You decide what to do with his company. He didn't raise his voice. That was exactly why those two short sentences came through clearer than the howling wind. The Aspen Peak Summit Maintenance Station. I was abandoned at 9:40 p.m. Putting it into words made me feel like even the trembling in my fingertips was being recorded. I gripped the receiver tighter with my left hand. My right hand refused to let go of the gray envelope containing the divorce papers. The rescue dispatcher, who was also on the line, confirmed the situation with a calm voice. Maya, the current outside temperature is 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Are you maintaining consciousness? Yes, but I'm losing feeling in my hands. Do not fall asleep. We are deploying the Aspen Peak Mountain Patrol. Estimated time of arrival to the summit is over an hour. I didn't close my eyes. Snow tangled in my eyelashes, and the red light blurred in the corner of my vision. The 1 hour the rescue team gave me was an hour to keep me alive. It was a stark contrast to the 3 hours and 20 minutes Nolan had given me until his 1:00 a.m. deadline. The same clock held completely opposite meanings depending on who was using it. Can you get inside the maintenance station? The dispatcher asked. My access badge was revoked. The outer doors and the waiting room won't open. Who operated the system? I looked at the terminal at my feet. The administrator's identification name remained beneath the display. Aaron Hayes. Aaron Hayes, I answered. He is Nolan's executive assistant and the access control manager for this resort redevelopment project. He stated he was acting under the CEO's orders. Understood. This call is being automatically recorded. We will also request a preservation order for the operation logs as part of the incident record. The hard knot deep in my chest loosened just a fraction. Help was coming, but that wasn't all. A machine, rather than human memory, would remember that I did not choose to stay behind on my own. The first thing I got back wasn't warmth. It was the truth. Thank you. Please also preserve the Snowcat's operation logs. It was vehicle number 3 of Vance Resort Development. It left the summit station around 9:42 p.m. Cross. Referencing GPS data now, the dispatcher said. A short series of typing sounds followed. Confirmed. Vehicle 3 left the summit at 9:43 p.m. and is currently heading toward the hotel garage. Nolan was already inside a heated cabin. Riley was probably leaning against his shoulder in the seat that was supposed to be mine. Even imagining that scene, I didn't want to hang up the phone. There were 3 people in that vehicle, I said. Nolan Vance, Riley Mercer, and Aaron Hayes. They all knew the mountain road was going to be closed in 15 minutes. The dispatcher's voice dropped a register. Was the conversation announcing that also recorded? Not inside the vehicle, but outside the station. I told all of them. Nolan's face from a few minutes ago floated into my mind. With one hand on the Snowcat door, he had looked at me like he was listening to an annoying status report. It's 10 degrees out here, and the road closes in 15 minutes. If you leave me here, it won't just be an accident. I had definitely said that. Nolan had merely checked his watch. You're always exaggerating. Just walk down the maintenance trail and you'll reach the hotel. General vehicles are banned because of the blizzard. But how many hours do you think it takes to walk? That's why I'm telling you I'll wait until 1:00 a.m. He had used the word wait as if he were granting me mercy. Riley had stroked her seat from inside the cabin with her thinly gloved fingers. Nolan, your wife used to work in internal audit, right? I guess she's just really good at risk management. It was phrased as a question, but the core of it was mockery. That's in the past. She just still has a habit of lining up numbers to scare people. Nolan had replied, then jutted his chin toward Aaron. Process it. Aaron hadn't looked at me. He tapped the terminal twice and dropped my badge's privileges. Processed as instructed. The red light had turned on. The snowcat door closed. The tracks of Vehicle 3 carved into the snow, moving further and further away until my voice could no longer reach them. Those 3 had heard my warning. And now, the emergency phone was recording that exact same warning. Maya, the dispatcher called, pulling me back to the present. There is a windbreak wall on the north side of the station. The phone cord stretches up to 40 feet. Can you move while holding the receiver? I can. Watch your step as you go. If you fall, speak up immediately. I tucked the envelope inside my coat and clamped the receiver under my arm. Every time I stepped into the knee-deep snow, the freezing cold seeped into my boots. Those 40 feet felt longer than the entire trail down to the hotel. But I was no longer walking toward the hotel. I was moving to a place where I could protect myself. Once I stepped into the shadow of the windbreak, the snow hitting my face was cut in half. Movement confirmed, the dispatcher said. We will keep the line open from here. The second thing I got back was the fact that I was not alone. My grandfather asked briefly, Maya, do you understand what it means to continue the audit? Yes. The total budget for the Aspen Peak Resort redevelopment was $320 million. Vance Resort Development was leading the charge, and Sterling Holdings held 34% of the voting rights. The next capital injection was $48 million. The payment conditions included a mandatory reporting clause for severe accidents and strict verification of related party transactions. The audit was originally supposed to start tomorrow morning. I was the one who had delayed it 3 times. Since we got married, Nolan never knew I was a Sterling. I felt that if I brought up the Sterling name, everything between us as husband and wife would be replaced by dollar amounts. So, I hid my maiden name, my profession, and my relationship with my grandfather. 3 years ago, when the Vance Company's cash flow worsened, I begged my grandfather not to let my failed marriage destroy Nolan's company. Because of that one plea, the $8 million framework remained. I had also kept begging for delays on the audit committee's final judgment, up until tonight. I know, I answered again. If we proceed with the audit, it will affect the company, but I still won't stop it. My grandfather offered no words of comfort. Understood. His part of the call ended there. He didn't tell anyone to crush the company or have anyone arrested. What my grandfather held were shares and contractual rights. What I asked for wasn't an order for revenge. It was simply allowing the suspended procedures to move forward as scheduled. Another incoming call tone chimed on the line. The dispatcher verified it. This is a connection request from Attorney Davis, representing Sterling Holdings. May I add him to the call? Please. A dry voice came through. Maya, I will ask questions regarding your physical condition first. We will keep the conversation in short segments. Davis didn't ask, Are you okay? Has your shivering stopped? Do you feel drowsy, nauseous, or notice any changes in your vision? I'm shivering. No drowsiness. My fingers are hard to move. Acknowledged. Please prioritize the rescue dispatcher's instructions. Next. Confirming evidence preservation. I heard the sound of pages turning. Access operation logs. Vehicle trace GPS data. Road closure notification logs. Telephone recordings. Preservation requests for these 4 items have been filed. You also mentioned divorce papers. Can you read the signature line? I pulled the gray envelope from inside my coat. The paper wasn't wet from the snow. Nolan had written his name with a heavy, unhesitating pressure. It looked much rougher than the careful handwriting on our marriage certificate 3 years ago. In my first year of marriage, I found an early payment authorization in Vance Resort's documents that predated the actual deliverables. When I asked him about it, Nolan slammed the folder shut. You are my wife now. Don't snoop around the house with the face of an auditor. Back then, torn between trusting him as a wife and doubting him as a professional, I backed down. In my second year, Mercer Media took over the PR work, and Riley started sitting next to Nolan at every meeting. You're so strict with numbers, Mrs. Vance? Riley would laugh. But PR is about moving people's hearts. Nolan brushed off my questions as being too micromanaging. In my third year, Aaron Hayes demanded I return my internal network access privileges. The CEO does not want former employees viewing company files. The names of those 3 people were now gathered on a single sheet of divorce papers. It wasn't a coincidence. To them, removing me from the seat of a wife and keeping me away from company records were the exact same procedure. The first witness signature belonged to Riley Mercer, the PR director who thought it was only natural to sit beside Nolan. The second was Aaron Hayes, the manager who deactivated my access badge. My husband's signature is here. The witnesses are Riley Mercer and Aaron Hayes. Both are adults. Davis paused for a few seconds. Your signature line is blank, correct? Yes. Do not sign it. Keep it in the envelope. We will draft an incident report after your rescue. Nolan Vance stated you must sign it if you don't return by 1:00 a.m. That statement is not on the emergency recording. However, Aaron's terminal operations and the physical divorce papers remain, and you have absolutely no legal obligation to wait until 1:00 a.m. I pressed my thumb against the corner of the envelope. Those words were more useful than any encouragement. The deadline Nolan set wasn't based on law or contract. It was an arbitrary time he fabricated just to force my submission. Mr. Davis. Yes? Tell the audit team to go in tomorrow morning as scheduled. Shall I record this as your personal decision rather than the chairman's? It is my decision. Acknowledged. Davis's reply was brief, but with that single word, the clock that had been stopped for 3 years finally reset to the correct time. On p.m. I decided to seek rescue and push forward with the audit. There were 2 hours and 45 minutes left until 1:00 a.m. But the deadline Nolan gave me no longer mattered. In the dispatch room, Captain Miller was preparing the rescue team for departure. His radio fed into the phone line. This is Captain Miller of the Aspen Peak Mountain Patrol. Maya, can you hear me? I can hear you. The wind speeds on the 36th Ridge are rising. We won't be using standard vehicles. We're coming to get you in a specialized tracked rescue unit. Current ETA is 11:10 p.m. If that changes, I will definitely let you know. Unlike Nolan, he didn't try to manipulate me with deadlines he couldn't keep. Miller stated the conditions and promised to inform me if they changed. Do not move from the windbreak wall. I will verify your name and date of birth every 5 minutes. If it becomes hard for you to answer, we will assess the progression of hypothermia. Understood. Do not rub your hands together. Put them under your armpits and protect your core. I did as I was told. Inside my coat, the envelope with the divorce papers pressed against my chest. The paper was cold, but it was still more trustworthy than Nolan's hands. At 10:10 p.m., the access control logs were secured as evidence of a rescue incident. The name of the user who operated the terminal, the exact time the privileges were revoked, and the authorization issued from Nolan's executive account, all of it lined up on a single screen. A confirmation call came in from the rescue dispatch center, and that conversation too was subject to recording. This is the Aspen Peak Mountain Patrol. Did you revoke Maya Vance's access privileges? The reply lacked a subject from the very beginning. I processed it. As instructed. Whose instructions? It was a decision made in the vehicle. Please provide an individual name. After a silence, Aaron lowered his voice. CEO Vance ordered it. At the time of revocation, were you aware that Maya was remaining at the summit? She said she wanted to cool her head for a bit, so I cut in through the receiver. I did not say that. Aaron's breath hitched. I warned you that it was 10 degrees Fahrenheit, I said. And right in front of me, you said, processed as instructed by the CEO. Mrs. Vance, right now, rescue operations are our priority. Do not let the person who obstructed a rescue dictate the priorities. The dispatcher silenced Aaron. Please refrain from directly addressing Maya. Just answer the questions. Aaron no longer called me Mrs. Vance. My memory is hazy. I will check the terminal logs. We have already secured the logs on our end. Do not make any alterations to the original data. The call was cut. The secured operation logs were isolated from Vance Resort's standard management dashboard. Even if they deleted the original records, the duplicates for the rescue case would remain. The only way to lift the preservation order was to get matching approvals from the rescue director and the lead auditor, Neither Aaron's admin privileges nor Nolan's executive privileges could unlock it. Listening to that explanation, I finally let out a breath of relief. The card Nolan had turned red locked me out, but the digital footprint of that very action trapped them inside the undeniable facts. Aaron tried to twist the narrative to make it look like I stayed by choice, but before the cold machinery of data and audio recordings, deleting a subject wouldn't erase the liability. The third thing I got back was the sequence of accountability. Even if they reached the hotel first, the truth was secured before they got there. Attorney Davis continued with the necessary confirmations for the audit. Maya, when did you last view the public relations contract with Mercer Media? 2 weeks ago. Total contract value is $6.4 million. It included payments prior to the delivery of actual services. 2 weeks ago, I had seen that contract in Nolan's study. I wasn't looking for it. He had left the file open to the signature page. The list of deliverables was 3 pages long, but the actual materials section was completely blank. And yet, the payment schedule was already registered in 4 installments. I had asked Nolan about it. What exactly are you verifying before paying this out? Nolan had flipped the document over. Riley's company is building the Aspen Peak brand. There's value that doesn't show up in the numbers right away. I'm not talking about value. I'm talking about deliverables. Is doubting your husband's subordinates your job as a wife? The conversation ended there. I let it end. The following day was the 3rd time I asked to postpone the audit. Tonight, the blank deliverables section and the judgment I had left blank finally connected, included in tomorrow morning's audit scope. Are the payments scheduled to move tonight? A batch process is scheduled for midnight. However, there are verification clauses regarding related party transactions. Then freeze it until the deliverables are provided. File for a payment hold as an audit decision. Don't make it a personal order from me. Just execute it. Even here, I wasn't telling anyone to unilaterally freeze someone's bank account. I was just treating a signed contract according to its written terms. I was simply forcing Nolan to follow the very rules he forced on others. Regarding the $8 million capital injection, a severe incident report is mandatory, Davis said. I will escalate tonight's events and the resumption of the audit to the investment committee. The committee will make the final call, yes. Notifying First Alpine Bank of material events is also an obligation of Vance Resort Development. I will contact CFO Mitchell. If it's Mitchell, I don't believe he will hide the numbers. I named the only person around Nolan who hadn't yet abandoned his professional duties. Not to make an ally, but to ensure that the company and Nolan were no longer treated as the same entity. At 10:22 p.m., the audit team moved the payments for Mercer Media into a holding state. At 10:27 p.m., the status on the $8 million capital injection screen updated to pending verification of material event. At 10:31 p.m., the contractual notification was dispatched to First Alpine Bank. None of these were procedures to destroy a company with a single phone call. The individual managers simply recorded their judgments under their own names. That way, even if Nolan later screamed that this was all my grandfather's doing, he would never find a single written order proving it. All that existed were the contracts Nolan had signed and the digital trails Nolan and his crew had left behind. The sound of the rescue team's radio was gradually getting closer. Captain Miller continued his 5-minute checks. Your name? Maya Vance. I gave my date of birth. The sounds I can hear right now are the wind, the generator, and a small operating hum near the emergency phone's recording light. You are coming through loud and clear. Keep talking. Over the radio, I heard the heavy crunch of the rescue vehicle's tracks chewing through the snow. Miller gave a brief status update. Just past the second switchback. Maya, we are about 40 minutes out. Understood. One-word answers are fine. Conserve your energy. Nolan had told me to walk back to the hotel on my own. Miller told me one word was enough. The voice demanding obedience, and the voice keeping someone alive differed not in length, but in purpose. I looked at the red light. The red of the access badge was the color meant to shut me out. The red of the emergency phone was the color screaming that I was still here. The same color, but protecting entirely different things. At 10:40 p.m., the celebration of the pre-opening continued at the Aspen Peak Grand Hotel, as if tomorrow's audit didn't exist. I learned of the events that followed from the hotel's records and the report submitted by Mitchell. Nolan entered a private dining room near the window and draped his jacket over a chair. He tossed the access badge he used on the snowcat onto the edge of the table. Riley sat in the seat meant for me and pointed her smartphone at Nolan. "Nolan, let me take one more picture. The snowscape is gorgeous. Do what you want. Tonight is your night." Aaron laughed quietly near the entrance. None of them knew the emergency phone at the summit was currently recording. Riley immediately uploaded the photo to Instagram. The window overlooked Aspen Peak. In the foreground were 2 glasses and her handbag resting on my chair. The caption was short, "Tonight's VIP seat." The posting time was 10:42 p.m. The exact same time I was reciting my name in the shadow of the windbreak wall. "Do you really think your wife will walk all the way back?" Aaron asked in a low voice. Nolan took a sip from his glass. "Of course she will. Maya isn't the type of woman who can decide anything on her own. But the road is already closed. There's an emergency phone at the maintenance station. If she's really in trouble, she'll call." Nolan just didn't know what I had communicated on that phone. Riley lowered her brows. "I feel awful, like I'm the reason you two are getting a divorce." "You aren't. She'll sign by 1:00 a.m. And once she does, the seat of Mrs. Vance is yours." Nolan poured more wine into Riley's glass. "I'll handle tomorrow's audit and the Sterling funding." Riley stroked the bag sitting on my chair. "Does Maya have some kind of connection to Sterling Holdings? She used to do internal audits in some lower department there a long time ago. Do you really think a woman who quit her job to get married has the power to move $48 million? Aaron chimed in. "We processed the wife's access badge instantly with your executive authority, too." "Exactly. Between the 3 of them, my worth was lighter than a single plastic card. Turn the card red, and they could control my destination." Nolan genuinely believed that. At 10:47 p.m., the first notification arrived on Mitchell's terminal. Capital injection review, $48 million. Status: changed from scheduled for execution to pending verification of material event. Mitchell read the notification twice and immediately contacted the investment contract manager. What came back wasn't a message from Chairman Sterling. It was the contract number, the exact time the audit resumed, the tracking number for a rescue incident occurring on Aspen Peak, and a formal notice stating that the next capital injection would not be executed until the review committee convened. Mitchell opened the door to the private room. "Mr. Vance, I have an urgent report." Nolan didn't look up, just set his glass down. "Leave it for tomorrow. The $8 million capital injection has been placed on hold." The music continued to play in the hallway. Inside the room, Riley lowered her phone. Nolan, as if asking someone to correct a misheard word, said, "Say that again." "The capital injection from Sterling Holdings. It will not be executed until the material event review is completed." "Who authorized such a decision?" "The review committee, based on the investment contract." "Call Chairman Sterling. It's an administrative error." Mitchell shook his head. "This is not an order from the chairman personally. The resumption of the audit and a rescue incident met the contractual conditions." "Rescue incident?" Nolan's questioning tone broke off mid-sentence for the first time. Aaron's eyes darted to the access badge on the table. Riley interjected first. "Maya is just making a huge fuss over nothing, isn't she? If she can call for help, it means she wasn't actually in danger." Mitchell didn't look at Riley. A condition requiring a rescue request cannot be classified as not in danger. The smile vanished from Riley's lips. Nolan tapped the table with his finger. "What exactly did Maya say? That I abandoned her? The notification I received does not specify who did what. However, operation logs and audio recordings are under a preservation order." Aaron half rose from his chair. "Audio recordings?" Mitchell didn't answer, instead handing the next document to Nolan. "We've also received a mandate from the auditors to freeze tonight's payments to Mercer Media." Riley stood up. "Why is my company being targeted?" "There is a lack of deliverable documentation regarding the related party transaction. The midnight batch processing will not proceed until the audit team verifies it. But those payments were already approved. Approval and deliverables are 2 different things." Mitchell's reply was brief. Nolan pushed the document back across the table without opening it. Mitchell, whose company pays your salary? Vance Resort Development. Then listen to my orders. Reinstate the payments. And force the $48 million through as scheduled. Executive authority cannot reinstate them. Nolan's voice rose a notch. You're the CFO. There's no way you can't do it. It's not that I can't. It's that I am prohibited from doing so. Mitchell didn't lower his gaze. The more Nolan tried to push through with his title of CEO, the more the things he contractually couldn't do became blatantly clear. He still thought he was wielding power. In reality, he was just making someone read aloud the exact limits of his useless authority in front of everyone. At 11:02 p.m., Mitchell received a call from First Alpine Bank. Mitchell answered without putting it on speaker in front of Nolan. While listening, he jotted down 3 phrases on his notepad. Material event, financial covenant breach, suspension of new drawdowns. When the call ended, Nolan snatched the paper. What is this? First Alpine Bank is reevaluating our credit line. Until the review is complete, they will not accept any new drawdowns. They're cutting off our financing? No, a reevaluation. It's the same thing. Put the branch manager on the line right now. This is the bank's decision. They are not someone I can give orders to. Nolan pulled out his own phone and called his assigned banker's number. The first time, it went to voicemail. The second time was the same. The third time, the representative answered and merely repeated the contract and review procedures. Mr. Vance, at this moment we have not made a decision to accelerate your existing loans. However, pending confirmation of the material event, we cannot execute additional funds. Do you know how many years we've done business together? Years of business and our current verification duties are separate matters. Nolan hung up. He hung up as if he thought cutting the call would erase the bank's decision. Riley gently touched his arm. Nolan, isn't this just harassment from a competitor? Or maybe someone at Sterling Holdings who is close to Maya? She doesn't have those kinds of connections. Nolan fired back immediately. We've been married for 3 years. She has nothing she could hide from me. What I hid weren't connections. It was something he had never bothered to ask about even once. My own background. At 11:12 p.m., the rescue vehicle arrived in front of the summit station. Captain Miller's radio voice came clearly through the door. Maya, we are opening the door from out here. Checking your consciousness. I can hear you. I have almost no feeling in my hands. Please step back so you don't drop the receiver. I tried to move my fingers. I couldn't do it on the first try. On the second try, I looped the cord around my wrist. Attorney Davis's voice came through the line. Maya, you don't need to explain anything else. We have all the records. I tried to reply, but the sound that came out of my throat was completely hoarse. Davis didn't push it. I hear you. Handing you back to rescue dispatch. I couldn't form a perfect sentence. Instead, the recording light blinked, uninterrupted. At the hotel, at the exact same time, a notice to suspend work arrived from the primary contractor for the unstarted construction zones. If the $48 million funding was under review, they couldn't start additional construction. It was the contractor's decision, strictly adhering to the contract. When Mitchell delivered this third report, Nolan kicked his chair and stood up. Outside the private room, the project department staff, holding documents, stopped in their tracks. Just 10 minutes ago, these were the same people urging the CEO and the PR director to stay the night at the hotel. One of them quietly asked Mitchell, "Is tomorrow morning's site briefing still on schedule?" Mitchell turned to the staff, not to Nolan. "We will continue the safety inspections for the audit. We are only halting new orders for the unstarted zones. There are no decisions tonight regarding layoffs or furloughs for the site workers." The staff member nodded. Nolan interrupted the exchange. "Don't just make decisions on your own. Change nothing about tomorrow's schedule." Mitchell repeated his previous instruction to the staff. Safety inspections continue. New orders are on hold. Between the CEO's outburst and the contractual division, the staff chose the latter. When they left the room, they no longer suggested that Nolan stay the night. They can't all happen at the same time. Different companies are verifying the same root cause independently. Someone is pulling the strings behind the scenes. There is no evidence of that. Then find it. Find what? The person targeting me. Mitchell stayed silent for a few seconds. First, I will verify the facts that the company is obligated to report. Nolan narrowed his eyes. Who do you think you're talking to? I am reporting as the CFO to the Chief Executive Officer. Mitchell's professional tone didn't falter. Yet, he made it abundantly clear that he was answering to his corporate duties, not to Nolan as an individual. Aaron stepped closer to Nolan. Mr. Vance, if it's about the access records, I will check them. Do it now. You can probably explain it in a way that shows my wife stayed behind on her own. Mitchell looked at Aaron for the first time. Are you planning to fabricate a narrative instead of facts? It's a matter of phrasing. Please refrain from deciding the phrasing first in a rescue incident. Aaron clamped his mouth shut. Nolan cut Mitchell off. Enough. Bring all the audit materials to my room. The audit materials are under preservation orders. They cannot be moved. Are you telling me the CEO can't look at them? You may view them if you follow the access procedures. But the originals cannot be moved. Nolan laughed. It was a short, breathy scoff. You're telling me I need to follow procedures in my own company? Because they are company documents, Mitchell replied. With a single sentence, he severed Nolan's personal ownership from the corporate entity. Riley set her glass down. Nolan, shouldn't you call Maya first? Maybe you can beg her to stop the audit. What is there to say now? Are you suggesting she's the one who triggered the audit, just because she made a call from the summit? But it was right then that Nolan opened his phone for the first time. He called me. The emergency phone was currently active. My personal phone was inside my coat, cold, but with reception. It didn't ring. An automated voice informed him the number was unreachable. He tried again. Same result. She's not answering? Riley asked. Nolan didn't reply. At 11:21 p.m., formal notice of evidence preservation arrived from Sterling Holdings' audit team. The targets were access control logs, vehicle operation logs, the Mercer Media contract, deliverable records, and executive approval histories. Nolan only read the first item before shoving the tablet back to Mitchell. Make them wait until morning. The audit starts tomorrow morning. The evidence preservation starts tonight. Your approval is not contractually required. Sterling only owns 34%. They don't even have a majority. This is about audit rights and capital injection conditions, not majority voting. Nolan tried to escape to yet another logical loophole, but the numbers Mitchell presented closed every single door. 34%. $48 million. $6.4 million. Every single one of them was a number Nolan himself had signed off on. At 11:29 p.m., the payment freeze for Mercer Media became official. A notification also arrived on Riley's phone. She screamed before even finishing the text. This is a disaster. I have payments to subcontractors due tomorrow, Mitchell asked. Have you submitted the deliverables? The results of PR can't be measured just by numbers. I'm asking if they were submitted. Nolan approved them. The deliverables Riley didn't answer. Nolan spoke up instead. I approved them. That's enough. Mitchell closed the notification. That mentality is exactly what the audit targets. Riley grabbed Nolan's sleeve. Do something! If Mercer Media goes under, we can't even host tomorrow's press conference. Stop panicking. I'll have it reversed by morning. I am the CEO of Vance Resort Development. Nolan was still using his title as an answer. He refused to admit that the number of people who no longer cared about that title was increasing one by one. At 11:36 p.m., First Alpine Bank sent a notice for an 8:00 a.m. financial review meeting. At 11:41 p.m., the primary contractor officially removed their personnel from the unstarted zones. At 11:47 p.m., the Investment Review Committee officially finalized the suspension of the capital injection. The company wasn't bankrupt. The accounts weren't frozen. And yet, the money, the people, and the time Nolan thought he could use tomorrow were vanishing from his schedule, piece by piece. Mitchell pointed to the $48 million column. The hold is official. What happens to the company tomorrow? Nolan finally made the company the subject, instead of himself. Mitchell opened the cash flow spreadsheet. With our existing operating capital, we won't immediately default on payments. However, any orders predicated on the $48 million will need to be restructured. Then it's not a big deal. To ensure it doesn't become a big deal, we are segmenting the accounts we freeze starting tonight. It all depends on the audit results, which could be lifted by morning. The results are already set, they just need to look at the paperwork and it's over. Mitchell didn't point out that Mercer Media's deliverable section was blank. Instead, he simply highlighted the corresponding cell in the cash flow spreadsheet in red. Nolan looked away from that mark. The company hadn't collapsed yet. That was exactly why. If he admitted the facts and followed the procedures, there was room to minimize the damage. But Nolan interpreted that room as mere waiting time until his authority was restored. Staring at the document, Nolan repeated the same question twice. Who decided this? Who the hell decided this? The Investment Review Committee. Chairman Sterling forced them to say it, didn't he? There will be meeting minutes. The reasons for each committee member's judgment will also be recorded. They can just rewrite that crap later. Mitchell's eyes changed. It wasn't anger. It was the look of someone memorizing a CEO's statement as a risk factor to be reported. I will record that statement as well. Nolan finally shut his mouth, but he hadn't reflected on his actions. He was merely wary of the possibility that his own words might come back to bite him. Past midnight, the comments on Riley's tonight's VIP seat post were filled with congratulations. None of them knew that outside the frame of that photo, rescue workers were climbing a freezing mountain. None of them knew that the man inside the photo was clutching a $8 million suspension notice. Riley tried to delete the post. Mitchell stopped her. Please do not delete that. It's my personal account. It is required for timestamping against the audit materials. Are you treating me like a criminal? I am not treating you like anything. I am verifying the timeline. Riley froze her finger over the delete button. Nolan snapped in irritation. Just delete it. What does a photo like that even mean? Mitchell shot back immediately. It proves the time you left the summit and the time you arrived at the hotel. The arrogance drained from Aaron's face. The access operations, the Snowcat's GPS, the road closure, the Instagram post, 4 records left in entirely different places, all pointed to the exact same night. Despite all this, Nolan decided I had orchestrated it. It's Maya. She went crying to Sterling's audit department. Even if she did, Mitchell said, if there are no contract violations, it ends with a simple verification. Are you doubting me? I'm verifying the numbers. Are you on Maya's side too? I am the company's CFO. Every time Nolan asked a question, he moved further away from the answer he wanted. What he wanted was a subordinate who would tell him that nobody was at fault. What Mitchell delivered were times, amounts, and contracts. At 12:09 a.m., Nolan approached the hotel window. Through the blizzard, the lights of the summit station were invisible. Is she still on the mountain? Aaron checked his tablet. I can't access the rescue logs. You're the access manager, aren't you? There's a preservation order, and my privileges can't open it. Nolan turned around. You're the one who processed those records. And that seems to be exactly why my party privileges were revoked. Another one of Nolan's directives had slipped from his grasp. Nolan called my number a 3rd time. It didn't connect. He left a short, demanding voicemail. Maya, call me as soon as you hear this. There was no apology, no inquiry about my safety. He still clung to the assumption that if he called, I would answer. At 12:13 a.m., an urgent message arrived on Mitchell's terminal from the shareholders. It detailed the status of evidence preservation, demands for an explanation the following morning, and a schedule for hearings involving all relevant parties, including the CEO. Before reading it completely, Nolan slammed the tablet onto the table. If I drag Maya back here, all of this stops, right? Mitchell didn't answer. I'm asking you. I do not know. Then who does? The contract parties and the person who authorized the audit. The chairman? It was here that Mitchell corrected him for the first time. Sterling Holdings, and the individual who requested the resumption of the audit. Who is that? It's not listed in the notice, Nolan sneered. Then Maya just used the Sterling name without permission. I'll just confirm it with my father, and it'll be over. Riley nodded immediately. That's right. If Chairman Vance talks to them, he can smooth things out, right? Aaron jumped onto that lifeline too. If Chairman Vance contacts them, The auditors will realize it's just a misunderstanding. The guilty parties still chose the word misunderstanding. They were desperately trying to convince themselves that this wasn't an error in the records, but merely a failure to properly communicate their position. Only Mitchell remained silent. He didn't believe for a second that a phone call from a father could erase contractual data. Clinging to the delusion that his father could fix everything was the only thing keeping Nolan's voice sounding like a CEO's. He clicked his tongue and went to call his father, Richard Vance. Before his finger even hit dial, his phone rang. It was 12:17 a.m. The caller ID showed one word: Dad. The moment Nolan answered, Richard's voice blasted through the speaker. Nolan! Perfect timing. Sterling's auditors are misunderstanding something. Maya went and... Where did you leave Maya? Nolan's explanation didn't even land. The Aspen Peak Summit maintenance station. I just told her to cool her head and... What time was it? Around 9:40 p.m. It is currently 12:17 a.m. The shouting faded from Richard's voice. What replaced it was a low, deliberate tone, as if he were verifying every single detail. The road closed at 10:00 p.m. The rescue request came in at 10:10 p.m. You left your wife on a 10-degree mountain for nearly 3 hours? That's why I'm saying she's exaggerating. There's an emergency phone at the station. If she was really in danger, she could have Nolan's mouth snapped shut. Riley sat up from the sofa, watching his expression. Who do you think is the reason that $48 million was still sitting there? What are you talking about? The Aspen Peak Resort redevelopment. The reason Sterling Holdings didn't pull their funding. Richard coughed once, steadied his breathing, and then spoke. Maya is Arthur Sterling's granddaughter. The ambient noise in the private room suddenly sounded very far away to Nolan. The tablet slipped from Riley's fingers and dropped onto the leather sofa. Impossible. Nolan denied it immediately. Maya herself said she cut ties with the Sterling family. If she's the chairman's granddaughter, why didn't she say anything when she married into the Vance family? Because she wanted to marry you. There was no sympathy in Richard's answer. She didn't want to be chosen for a fake name, so she left her title behind. Even so, Chairman Sterling fully intended to crush the company his granddaughter chose. Did you know, Dad? Since before the wedding. Chairman Sterling didn't sign that contract because of family ties. Maya herself scrutinized the financial projections and safety plans for Aspen Peak. It was the first Nolan had heard of this. Before we were married, I had reviewed the Aspen Peak files while working in Sterling Holdings' internal audit department. Even after secretly marrying into the Vance family, I wrote the risk assessment recommending the capital injection on the strict condition that they did not cut the safety budget, Richard continued. Last year, when the investment committee raised flags about your wildly inflated revenue projections, Maya went to Chairman Sterling and begged for just one more extension. It was the very day after you laughed at her at the dinner table, calling her a woman who knew nothing about business. Nolan had no response. The wife he had written off as incompetent had been buying time for his company in a place he knew nothing about. That fact hit his bottom line long before it reached his sense of affection. Nolan's voice pitched up. You knew. And you hid it from me? Maya was the one hiding it. I just used that secret as an insurance policy for Vance Resorts. Richard didn't run from the truth. But you didn't even know what your insurance policy was, and you treated your wife like garbage for 3 years. And tonight, you put her life up as collateral. Save the lecture for later. Call the chairman and have him lift the hold on the $48 million. The sound of Richard slamming his fist on a desk echoed through the phone. Are you still talking about money? Read the audit notice. The material breach clauses in the investment contract have been triggered. Board meeting minutes. Related party transactions. The summit operation logs. This isn't something that goes away just because Chairman Sterling says stop. Then what am I supposed to do? Nolan dropped the formalities. Find Maya. Apologize while she's still breathing if you want to save the company. She's the one who gets to decide that. Dad, you're the chairman. Are you telling me to bow my head? Do not put the CEO's chair on the same scale as a human life. Richard's answer was swift. And remember this. What Maya was protecting wasn't you. It was the people working at Aspen Peak and the vendors who trusted the Vance name. The call cut off. Nolan stood frozen, the phone still pressed to his ear. Riley spoke first. Nolan, I just got a call from my dad. Her sweet tone from earlier was completely gone, replaced by short, panicked breaths. Mercer Media's accounts are under audit review, and the payments for the Aspen Peak contract are suspended. If a $4 million contract is cut, my company really won't survive. Nolan glared at her. So, you expect Vance Resort Development to save your ass first and explain to Sterling that it was all a misunderstanding? I never said save just my family. If Vance survives, we survive too, right? Who was it that said to throw Maya out into the cold? Riley didn't blink. I only said we should teach her a little lesson, but you're the one who started it. Nolan shoved a glass off the table. You told me to bring her to the summit. You told me to show her the divorce papers. You laughed and said the blizzard would cool her head. It was all you, but you're the one who drove the snowcat. If you hadn't come, none of this would have happened. Mitchell stood at the entrance to the private room. He didn't intervene, just listened to their words. Realizing he was watching, Riley pulled back the hand she had reached out to Nolan. She looked at him like he was a plague. Nolan's voice grew ragged. I told you to stay away from Maya. Clean up your own mess at Mercer Media. Don't ever show your face to me again. Just last night you told me the seat of the wife was mine. All the softness vanished from Riley's voice. Don't try to pin this all on me. You're the one who sent the text saying, close the doors. She held up her phone. The screen showed an exchange from 9:43 p.m. Short text lined up under Nolan's name. Drop Maya off. Close the doors. Delete that. Nolan reached for it. Riley took a step back, pulling the screen to her chest. There's one from 12:02 a.m. too. Erase the summit records. Mitchell spoke up for the first time. Please do not operate that device. It is currently under a preservation order. This is my company's data. Do not give me orders, CFO. It is precisely because it is internal data. Since the representative himself issued a deletion instruction, I will prioritize my preservation duties. While Nolan turned to glare at Mitchell, Riley opened the attachment screen. What are you doing? Are you sending Mercer Media's invoices too? Stop it! You processed the $1 million transfer like it was a gift to me, didn't you, Nolan? If you're planning to let me sink alone, I'll take your approval stamp down with me. A send confirmation chime rang out. The destination was Davis Corporate Law Firm, the exact firm listed on the audit notice. Every trace of the smile Riley had directed at Nolan was gone. Now they get to see the same records. Recall it. Now. I already got a read receipt. Riley flashed the screen. You thought you could cut me loose and it would be over. You were the one who told me to forge the Mercer Media estimates. You were the one who said to split it into PR expenses so it wouldn't have to go to the board of directors. You're the one who demanded an astronomical amount. And who stamped their approval on that demanded amount? Mitchell placed a massive fact between the two of them. Of the $6.4 million, the terminal that approved the 4 payments was Mr. Vance's executive account. We cannot process it based solely on Miss Mercer's explanation. Then you knew about it too, didn't you, Mitchell? I requested a declaration from the involved parties. It was Mr. Vance who judged that a declaration was unnecessary. Nolan tried to shift the blame from Maya to Mitchell. But every time he changed the name, the same approval record came flying right back to him. Riley's phone buzzed again. It was an executive from Mercer Media. Riley, what did you do? We just got a notice of contract termination from Vance. And it's not just me. Nolan approved everything. He's getting his executive rights suspended. The voice over the phone was loud enough for everyone in the private room to hear. Riley looked at Nolan, not with eyes asking for help, but with eyes confirming the exact coordinates of the person she was syncing with. Nolan lunged to snatch her phone. Mitchell stepped between them. If you touch that, I will log it as a new obstruction of evidence preservation. Move, Mitchell. I will not move. Just hours ago, his orders were executed before people even replied. Now, the 2 people closest to him wouldn't move an inch for his words. 1 hour and 5 minutes before that phone call, at 11:12 p.m., the headlights of a snowcat flashed twice outside the Aspen Peak Summit station. Still gripping the red emergency phone, I heard Captain Miller's voice. Maya, it's the rescue team. We're opening the door from out here. Do not stand up. The metal door was pushed from the outside, and a block of snow collapsed onto the floor. Miller came right to my side and checked my pulse without even taking off his thick gloves. Can you say your name? Maya Vance. Where are you right now? Aspen Peak Summit Maintenance Station. Can you see the vehicle that came for you? I can see it. I'm okay. I'm answering all your questions. He wrapped a thermal blanket around my shoulders and called out the time to another team member. I listened to the sound of a pencil scratching the time into the rescue log. Miller looked at the red phone. We will not stop the recording. We'll issue the same preservation tracking number to the management company's external storage and to the local sheriff's department. Please do. Vehicle GPS data has also been secured from the operating company. It shows a vehicle arriving at the summit at 9:39 p.m. and a single vehicle descending at 9:43 p.m. Can you confirm the passengers? The manifest lists 4 people: Nolan Vance, Riley Mercer, Aaron Hayes, and Maya Vance. The parking garage footage at the hotel will only show 3 people disembarking. I have already arranged for that footage to be preserved. Miller asked for permission before cutting the cuffs of my coat. Pulling frozen fabric will tear the skin. May I cut the sleeves? Please. Small shears sliced only through the fabric. I was asked to pinpoint every area of pain, and each answer was documented. The state Nolan had called an exaggeration was translated by the rescue team into a concrete medical form: consciousness, pulse, core temperature, skin discoloration. The time they abandoned me and the time they returned to their heated vehicle, neither would be erased by the snow. Maya, do you still have the envelope with the divorce papers? I felt inside my coat. The gray envelope was still there, tucked beneath the freezing fabric. I have it. Then please hold on to it yourself. Miller didn't take it, nor did he dictate how I should hold it. For the first time tonight, I heard words that gave me back what was mine. The warmed oxygen inside the snowcat reached my nose. They told me the pain in my fingertips was proof that feeling was returning. Every time drowsiness washed over me, a team member asked for my name and the time. I answered every single time. When morning comes, I am going to the Vance Resort Development Board of Directors meeting. Miller didn't disagree. Just check the thermometer readout. Only if the hospital doctor clears you. Our job tonight is to make sure you don't lose your life. Understood. When we arrived at Denver Memorial Hospital, my core temperature was in the 93-degree Fahrenheit range. The doctor explained, right in front of Miller and the nurses, that if I had been out there another hour, the risk of severe cognitive impairment would have skyrocketed. Even if the superficial injuries look minor, hypothermia cannot be judged by the patient's willpower alone. I remembered Nolan's words. Walk, and it'll cool your head. In the examination room, that wasn't a joke, nor was it a lesson. It was immortalized on a medical certificate as a near-fatal act. The doctor noted the hypothermia and suspected frostbite on my digits, officially documenting that these were symptoms consistent with at least 3 hours of exposure. I signed consent forms handing over the recording tracking numbers, road closure logs, and Snowcat GPS data to Attorney Davis. Then, I called Arthur. Maya. My grandfather used just one word to check my breathing. I've been rescued. I'm at the hospital. A long exhale came through the phone. I'll come pick you up. Are you going to open the board meeting tomorrow and crush Vance? The people I want to crush, and the company I want to save, are 2 different things. I looked at my fingers, still stiff under the blanket. Keep the $48 million frozen, but please separate the employee payroll accounts and the rescue equipment upgrade funds. Maya, are you the one deciding that? I am the one deciding, my grandfather answered simply. Understood. Tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. The Denver Regional Headquarters. It was 1:02 a.m. when Nolan finally made his way back up to the summit station. Driving an authorized maintenance vehicle up the closed road, he found the deep tracks left by the rescue snowcat. The station door was sealed with the rescue team's tamper-evident tape. The recorded rescue time was 11:12 p.m. While Nolan was distracted by company money and his own status, I was already in a vehicle he could never reach. Maya! He shouted my name into the snow. The only answers were the seal number and the howling wind. Nolan tapped his card against the terminal next to the door. The red light flared. Privileges have been suspended. The machine's voice was far more polite than the words he had forced me to listen to. He circled the station, looking for any footprints I might have left. but the treads of the rescue vehicle and the relentless snow had buried everything. Peering through the window, all he could see was the red emergency phone. Next to the receiver was a seal reading. Under external preservation. Nolan banged on the glass. That's a recording of my wife. Let me, her husband. Check it. The property manager who had accompanied him shook his head. It's a record of a rescue incident. No one but authorized personnel can touch it. I am the CEO of the company paying for it. I just received notice that your privileges are suspended. Even returning to the summit, there was nothing Nolan could retrieve. I wasn't there, and only the records waited for him. He scanned his card again, and on the third try, slammed his fist into the terminal. Open it. I am the chief executive officer. Privileges have been suspended. Nolan called my phone. No ringing, not even voicemail. I had blocked his number. He dropped to his knees in front of the sealed door. It wasn't an apology. A man who had lost both the right to enter and the means to bring me back simply couldn't stand in the snow anymore. At 8:26 a.m., Nolan rushed into the glass-walled lobby of Sterling Holdings' Denver regional headquarters. The collar of the shirt he hadn't changed all night was messy, and dried de-icing salt stained the edges of his shoes white. He tapped his Vance Resort Development executive badge against the security gates. A red light flashed back at him. What is this? Mr. Vance, your temporary access privileges have been suspended due to audit procedures. The receptionist stood up, but she didn't call him CEO. I have an 8:30 a.m. board of directors meeting to attend. Your attendance has been confirmed. A security officer will escort you once Attorney Davis is present. I need a lawyer's permission to go to a meeting for my own company. 2 employees waiting behind him exchanged a look. Nolan turned and ordered them. Swipe your badges and let me through. Neither moved. Nolan leaned over the reception desk. Call Mitchell. Tell him to restore my privileges right now. I have received the current access authorization list directly from Mr. Mitchell. The receptionist didn't turn her screen. Mr. Vance is cleared for a one-time escorted entry to the conference room only. A one-time entry for the CEO. Hearing that, a janitor in the lobby pulled his cart away from the scanners. In the past, everyone would have cleared a path for him. Now, the only path cleared was a single lane, escorted by security guards. I was standing on the other side of the glass. I was wearing thin gloves, borrowed from the hospital, and clutching the gray envelope. Nolan reached a hand out over the gate. Maya, you're safe. Escort Mr. Vance to the conference room, I told the receptionist. Nolan's eyes wavered. The distance between us wasn't a wife addressing her husband, it was a plaintiff addressing a defendant. At 8:30 a.m., inside the conference room sat Arthur Sterling, Richard Vance, CFO Mitchell, Attorney Davis, and the directors representing both Vance and Sterling. Aaron Hayes was absent. His terminal and access badge were placed in a clear evidence bag in the center of the table. I sat next to Davis, not my grandfather. Arthur opened the meeting. I am not the chair. I am here representing the holding company that controls 34% of the voting rights. Eyes shifted to me. What Maya chooses, I will hear right here. Nolan didn't sit in his chair. He walked right up to me. Maya, let me explain. Please take your seat, Mr. Vance. Davis cut him off. Any statements will be made after the chair acknowledges you. Stay out of this, lawyer. This is between husband and wife. It involves rescue records and the preservation of corporate assets, so it is absolutely not just between husband and wife. Mitchell pointed to Nolan's seat. Mr. Vance, please sit down. It was the voice of the man who had called him CEO just the night before. Nolan glared at Mitchell, but no one corrected the title. He pulled out the chair and sat directly across from me. The first question came from Nolan. Maya, we've lived together for 3 years. I know I have my flaws, but as a married couple, there has to be room for at least one conversation. Before unpacking 3 years, I placed my medical certificate on the table to count the 3 hours from last night. From 9:40 p.m. to 11:12 p.m. Core body temperature at the time of rescue. 93 degrees. You abandoned the person you wanted to have a conversation with on a closed mountain. Richard read the signature on the document and looked down. A Vance director asked Nolan, Mr. CEO, did you know the road was closed? I didn't know. Aaron never told me. Aaron, appearing on a video feed, raised his head. I announced the closure schedule inside the snowcat. Shut your mouth! Nolan slammed the table. Don't try to shirk responsibility now, when you were the one driving. Aaron didn't close his mouth. I admit responsibility for driving, but when I suggested we go back, the CEO told her to walk for 6 hours. Davis pulled up the Road Management Authority logs. At 8:58 p.m., advance notice of closure was broadcast to all operators. At 9:12 p.m., it was marked "Read on Miss Mercer's corporate device." That's not my device. At 9:20 p.m., Miss Mercer posted on Instagram that the summit was closed due to the blizzard. The monitor in the conference room displayed last night's photo. Riley smiling by the hotel window, the white slopes behind her. The caption, "Tonight the summit is dangerous, so it feels like a private rental." The posting time was 20 minutes before they put me in the snowcat. I am not obligated to check her posts. She talked about the closure in the car, Aaron testified. The CEO said the maintenance station had a roof. Do you have proof? It is on the emergency phone recording. The proof Nolan demanded was waiting as the very next agenda item. The secretary typed his outburst directly into the minutes. With his very first defense, Nolan had failed to win back his wife's sympathy and lost the right to silence Aaron. Davis read out the red emergency phone's recording log number. Second item for verification, playing the communication logs from 9:43 p.m. onwards. The sounds I heard at the maintenance station played through the conference room speakers. My voice, shaking. The snowcat engine. Riley's laughter. The metallic slam of the door closing. And Nolan's words remained. Walk for 6 hours and your head will cool down. When the playback stopped, Nolan immediately threw Riley under the bus. I was just playing along with Riley's joke. I never seriously meant to put her in danger. Who executed the joke? Davis asked. Aaron. All I said was drop her off. But you're the one who ordered him to close the doors. I projected a screenshot from my tablet. 9:43 p.m. Drop Maya off. Close the doors. Sender, Nolan Vance. Davis overlaid the snowcat GPS data. The vehicle initiated its descent at the exact moment of the instruction. By 10:03 p.m., it had returned to the Aspen Peak Grand Hotel. Mitchell confirmed. Afterward, you continued meetings regarding the Mercer media contract in a private hotel room, correct? Rescue operations are the facility manager's job. The rescue request was made by the abandoned individual herself, Davis countered. There is not a single request on record from your company. Nolan turned to Richard instead of me. Dad, Riley made me delay. That woman was right next to me, and I am not the one who moved your fingers. Richard's response was curt. Mitchell displayed the deletion command from 12:02 a.m. Erase the summit records. Was this also a joke? Instead of answering, Nolan pointed at Mitchell. A finance guy shouldn't be pulling operation logs. Close that screen right now. The preservation order has not been lifted. I am the chief executive officer. Whether that authority will continue is the central topic of today's meeting, the chairman declared. Nolan's orders couldn't close a single screen. For the third question, his voice dropped. Maya, look at me. I looked. If I had known you were Chairman Sterling's granddaughter, I never would have left you in a place like that. Richard closed his eyes. A Sterling director put his pen down and stared straight ahead. I asked, if you didn't know, it's fine to abandon someone to die? Nolan opened his mouth. That's not what I mean. I'm saying I would have treated you with more care. If someone has a title, you treat them with care. If they don't, you punish them by risking their life. That is exactly what you just said. I'm telling you you're wrong. Nolan changed how he addressed me. Maya, you hid your identity and tested me too. If you had told me the truth from the beginning, I wouldn't have made this mistake. A Sterling director fired back. Are we dealing with an executive who can't protect human life unless he verifies their social standing first? Outsiders, keep your mouths shut about marital issues. The safety management of Aspen Peak concerns both investors and employees. A Vance director chimed in. We are evaluating the CEO's judgment, not his social standing. Nolan called out the two directors by name and threatened to cut business ties. When I'm back in charge, I won't forget what was said here today. The chairman instructed the secretary. Please record that statement as well. The more Nolan opened his mouth to deny things, the more reasons he gave them not to let him return. No, restrict the minutes to authorized statements only, the The secretary just verified the entry. Nolan stood up. Stop twisting my words on your own. Maya, this is our problem. Don't let the Sterling people judge me. Please sit down, the chairman ordered. If you refuse to sit, we will continue the proceedings without you. Nolan looked around. His eyes searched for an ally. But not a single hand went up. He sank back into his chair. The fourth question was about money. Nolan shoved the stack of documents away. In the end, this is just Sterling's revenge. Your granddaughter got hurt, so you're using the investment and the bank to steal my company. Am I wrong? Arthur Sterling didn't answer, just looked at Davis. Davis laid out the $8 million capital injection contract, the 34% voting rights agreement, and the latest notice from First Alpine Bank. This is not by the chairman's order. It is based on the contracts you signed and the records you left behind. You expect me to believe the bank moving at the exact same time is a coincidence? Upon receiving the contractual material event notice, the bank independently decided to reevaluate. Sterling Holdings formally notified you that the conditions for executing the capital injection were not met. Mitchell opened the next document. The Vance Resort Development Board of Directors, receiving my report, temporarily suspended your payment authorization. You betrayed the company. I protected the company's funds. If you remove me as representative, all the Aspen Peak negotiations will freeze. Mitchell already had the $4 million invoice ready. Regarding the related party transaction with Mercer Media, we cannot verify the service backing for $2.1 million of this. It's PR. Where are the deliverables? Miss, Mercer sent the approval screens and a full set of invoices. The approver is you. Davis pointed to the clause in the contract. The $8 million injection strictly requires disclosure of safety management structures and related party transactions. While severely slashing rescue budgets, you authorized $2.1 million for unverified services. We cannot treat this as a minor discrepancy. That's Sterling's judgment. The Vance internal auditors also unanimously classified it as a material event. An internal auditor spoke up. We did not know until we received the files last night, because they were concealed by the CEO. Do not shift the blame onto the auditors for failing to spot what was actively hidden. There is a record of splitting the invoice titles to avoid detection, Mitchell said, lining up 4 payment requests. The amounts varied, but the categories were split into snow clearing equipment, PR, client research, regional coordination, and video production. All recipients were Mercer Media. We also have an audio memo of Mr. Vance instructing them to split the invoices to stay under the board approval threshold. My own employees were recording me. It is an official audio log of a business meeting. Nolan reached out to close the file. An auditor clamped a hand down on it first. It is no longer up to Mr. Vance whether this gets closed or not. Nolan turned to Richard. Dad, say something. This contract was chairman approved. Richard looked up from the documents. I told you to record in the minutes that it was a related party transaction. You're the one who removed it. I did it for the Vance family. Is funneling hush money to your mistress for the Vance family? To Richard's question, Nolan replied that it was Riley's good faith. Just an hour ago, he had called her the woman who would be his wife. Now, he was making her the mastermind of the fraud. A Vance director shifted his gaze from Nolan to the documents. I vote in favor of the motion to dismiss the CEO. The first person publicly abandoned Nolan. For the 5th question, Nolan called my name again. Maya, please. He left his chair and tried to come to my side. Davis stood up and stepped between us. Please return to your seat. Do you want to destroy the company? Nolan yelled at me. Hundreds of people work for Vance Resorts. If you remove me, even the employees will be out on the streets. Last night, you slashed the employee rescue equipment budget to push through Mercer Media's invoices, Mitchell continued. The upgrade for the Summit Station's emergency heating was delayed due to budget shortages. The person who signed off on that delay was you, Mr. Vance. Nolan glared back at Mitchell. Don't bring that up now. You were the one who brought up the employees. Nolan's voice hit a crescendo. If I'm not here, who's going to manage a $320 million project? Don't think you know how to run a business just because you're a Sterling granddaughter. The one who doesn't understand is you. I opened the gray envelope. If you want to save the company, the first thing you need to do is step down. I will submit the divorce papers. If that's the condition, I can take a temporary leave of absence as CEO. Nolan rushed to add, I'll come back after the audit. In the meantime, you convince Chairman Sterling. This is not about a leave of absence. I presented 3 proposals to the board. Strip Nolan Vance of his executive rights. Freeze the payments to Mercer Media. Separate and secure the employee payroll and safety budgets from other liabilities. Mitchell confirmed with his documents. The payroll accounts can be isolated in the cash flow projections. The rescue equipment upgrade costs can be reallocated to the emergency budget. A Vance director asked, Can we survive this month even without the Sterling injection? If we halt executive compensation and related party payouts, we can protect the payroll. Then let's vote on that first. Another director agreed. Nolan lunged around the table to grab the documents. Don't you dare freeze my compensation. You just said you wouldn't put the employees on the street. I looked at him. If the company is what you want to protect, the first thing you sacrifice is your own seat. His attempt to use the employees as a human shield lost all power the moment he tried to protect his own paycheck. I spread the divorce papers on the table. In the husband's signature line, Nolan Vance. The witnesses, Riley Mercer and Aaron Hayes. The names gathered last night to kick me out were working today to cut me out of the Vance family entirely. Wait. Nolan reached for the paper. I pulled it closer. I only made you do that as a threat. It wasn't a real divorce. My signature is real, starting right now. I signed Maya Sterling. After submission, my surname reverts to Sterling. Nolan tried to grab my wrist. The conference room security detail stepped in, blocking his path. Don't touch her. She's my wife. Do not use those words to give me orders anymore. I didn't hand the form to Davis. I put it in my own bag. I will submit this myself. The chairman moved to the vote. All in favor of the motion to dismiss Nolan Vance as Chief Executive Officer, please raise your hand. Mitchell raised his hand. Not just the Sterling directors, but the Vance directors followed, one after another. Richard stared at his son until the very end. Finally, he raised his own hand. Dad, it's to save the company, Richard answered, his breath catching. I'm giving you back the words you used on Maya just now. Go cool your head. The chairman declared the resolution passed. Effective today, Nolan Vance is dismissed as Chief Executive Officer. Please return your corporate devices and executive badge. Nolan stood there, refusing to hand anything over to anyone. This vote is invalid. I built Vance Resort Development. I hired all of you. The company is not your personal property, Mitchell said. Step away from the employees. Nolan gripped his executive badge and headed for the conference room doors. He slammed the card against the reader. A red light and a warning beep returned. The card that had been stopped at reception had now lost even the privilege to exit the conference room. A security guard opened the door from the inside. Mr. Vance, this way. Call me CEO. The resolution has passed. Nolan looked at Richard, then at Arthur. Finally, he looked at me. Maya Sterling, are you really going to take everything from me? The only thing I had signed was a divorce paper. His signature, his orders, his approval logs, he was the one who had thrown it all away from the very beginning. I am simply taking back what is mine. The security guard guided Nolan out into the hallway. He kept repeating, save the company until the doors closed. Inside the conference room, no one called him the company anymore. At 10:15 a.m., I submitted the divorce papers at the Pitkin County Clerk's office. The clerk verified the signatures and witnesses, then asked about my legal name. I am reverting to my maiden name, Sterling. Is that correct? Yes. The clerk explained the procedure for requesting a post-divorce decree and the timeline for the name change. I confirmed each point. Once accepted, can the other party unilaterally withdraw it? No. If the requirements are met and it is filed today, the divorce is finalized. Hearing that answer, I checked the final box. On the mountain, Nolan had decided on a 6-hour deadline. At the clerk's office, I chose the time of 10:15 a.m. The filing time was recorded in the system. I watched the stamp hit the paper. Before leaving the counter, I requested one certified copy of the divorce decree. The name after issuance will be Maya Sterling, the clerk confirmed. Yes, and please send the mail here, not to the Vance residence. I wrote down the address for Davis corporate law firm. Until yesterday, even mail addressed to me was intercepted by Vance staff. From now on, not a single thing would pass through Nolan's house. As I left the counter, I got a call from the hospital. The doctor gave me an update on my frostbite treatment schedule. I agreed and said I would return for an examination first. There was no longer any need to leave wounds untreated to save face for tomorrow. The gray envelope was empty. Inside Vance Resort Development, the board minutes and the new authority matrix remained. The procedures to save the company had begun, but the name Nolan Vance was no longer included in the word company. By the afternoon, the board minutes were finalized. All corporate devices across Vance Resorts were confiscated. The first to be called in was Aaron Hayes. On the table in the meeting room sat his access badge, the Snowcat GPS logs, and the Summit Station's entry records. I just drove as I was ordered to. Aaron rested both hands on his knees, avoiding eye contact with the auditors. I also testified at the board meeting that I suggested we go back. You closed the door using your access badge at 9:42 p.m. Davis pointed at the log. And you made no rescue request afterward. If I defied the CEO, my own job was on the line. Nolan Vance did not close that door with your hands. Davis's voice didn't waver. The record of you following an order and the record of you executing an action remain entirely separate. The auditor pulled up another operation log. At 12:04 a.m., you attempted to change the retention period for the Summit security footage to 1 day, correct? The CEO told me to free up server space. The standard retention is 90 days. Furthermore, the storage capacity was 80% empty. I am not an IT admin. I didn't know what the setting meant. The modification screen explicitly displays a warning that the retention period will be shortened. Davis didn't interrupt Aaron. He waited until he finished before asking, "You clicked confirm after reading that warning, didn't you?" Aaron answered neither yes nor no. The auditor noted his silence. The operation was incomplete, not because Aaron had second thoughts, but because Mitchell had suspended his privileges first. Aaron finally looked at the table. The timestamp on the access log he had created lasted much longer than the 4 words he spoke. I just followed orders. Aaron was suspended immediately and, following internal procedures, terminated for cause. An employee representative from the Summit management team was present when the disciplinary action was announced. Can't you at least consider the fact that I said we should go back? Aaron pleaded at the end. The employee rep closed the operation log. You only said that because you knew going back was the right thing to do. Knowing that, and still closing the door, doesn't make your actions any lighter. Aaron handed over his access badge. This time, not even a red light turned on. The card itself had been purged from the master directory. The responsibility of leaving a person on the Summit, and the attempt to delete evidence, were added to the police investigation files. The documents Riley Mercer had sent did not become the shield she hoped for. The $6.4 million invoice? The $2.1 million transfer record for non-existent deliverables, and her text history with Nolan because all 3 pointed fingers at each other, the lines of guilt became crystal clear. Riley claimed Nolan prepared the invoices. Nolan countered that producing deliverables was Riley's responsibility. Aaron stated that the 2 of them ordered him to courier the envelopes. The accounting clerk who received the envelopes had submitted the receipts on the exact same day. On those receipts, Riley's revision instructions, Nolan's approval stamp, and Aaron's delivery signature sat on the exact same page. The name one person threw out to escape only revealed the location of another piece of evidence. The Instagram post Riley deleted had also been archived by the audit team. The time she knew about the blizzard, the time they put me in the vehicle, the time the 3 of them returned to the hotel alone, all nestled under that glamorous photo. 3 unmovable numbers. The contract with Mercer Media was voided, and outstanding balances were refused. Riley claimed through her lawyer that she was the CEO's fiancée. The reply document from Davis dismantled that in the first line. Nolan Vance is not the chief executive officer. The title of fiancé carries no legal weight to legitimize fraudulent invoices. Every door Riley tried to pry open using the Vance name slammed shut, one by one. When questioned by the district attorney, Riley invoked Nolan's name again. I wasn't in a position to give orders. Nolan decided to kick his wife out of the vehicle. Then who was it that said, "Walk for 6 hours and it'll cool your head"? The red emergency phone recording was played back. It was Riley's own voice. It was a joke. I didn't think he'd actually leave her. Did you try to stop the descent? Or call for rescue? Nolan said she'd be fine. Yet you yourself posted that it was dangerous, didn't you? Every time she tried to hide the subject behind soft words, the questions dragged the subject right back to her. Riley couldn't sit in the victim's chair, nor the innocent bystanders. Nolan Vance never touched a company terminal or account again. His executive badge was returned, his personal effects were boxed up and moved, and his name was scrubbed from all vendor contacts. Even so, he sent multiple letters demanding his reinstatement, claiming the project would stall without him. The letters went unanswered. Instead, he received a notice convening an extraordinary shareholders' meeting. Upon receiving it, Nolan filed an injunction to stop the execution of voting rights. However, what he demanded wasn't measures to protect the company, but a temporary reinstatement of his own position. His filing repeated endlessly that no one but him could run Aspen Peak. During that exact time, Mitchell and the site managers were completely rewriting the guest safety protocols. The tasks Nolan had claimed were his unique genius were broken down into step-by-step procedures that dozens of employees seamlessly took over. 3 days later, Richard Vance was rushed to Denver Memorial Hospital. I heard his pre-existing condition was compounded by a severe stroke. The cause of death announced by the doctors had nothing to do with board meetings or divorce papers. I did not go to the hospital. I had no intention of counting Richard's death as my victory, but he was a man who knew my family before the marriage, hid the truth from both his son and me, and used me as Vance's insurance policy. I sent a brief note of condolence through Davis. My grandfather didn't ask if I was going to the funeral. Just let me know what you decide. I'm not going. Understood. That was all my grandfather said. I was no longer required to play the role of the dutiful wife propping up the Vance family's public image, even on the day they lost someone. I refused to take on any role beyond that. I heard Nolan spoke at his father's funeral about rebuilding the Vance empire, but the company didn't wait for his return. 3 months later, the federal bankruptcy court in Denver initiated Chapter 11 restructuring procedures for Vance Resort Development. Backers, including Sterling Holdings, provided only the capital necessary to maintain operations, conditional on strict management oversight and transaction audits. The Aspen Peak Hotel did not close. The reservations desk answered phones. The snow-clearing crews hit the roads before dawn, prep work hummed in the kitchens, and brand-new emergency heating units were installed at the summit station. There was no need for the innocent employees to go down with the ship. At the restructuring briefing, one of the employees asked me, "Miss Sterling, if you're stripping the Vance name, does that mean the hotel gets sold off?" Stripping a name and destroying a workplace are not the same thing. I looked toward the restructuring trustee. It was the trustee, not me, who continued the explanation. Operations will continue. Employment contracts will, in principle, be honored. In this procedure, we are strictly separating executive liability from employee livelihood. The head of the culinary department raised a hand. "Are there any unpaid wages?" Mitchell answered using the cash flow statement. "No, because the board of directors isolated the payroll accounts." A collective sigh of relief rippled through the back of the room. For the first time, the phrase, "save the company," referred to the faces of the people working there, not just one CEO. Meanwhile, Nolan's dismissal was ratified at the extraordinary shareholders meeting. His shares were liquidated according to the restructuring plan and civil claims, and his voting rights evaporated. He once claimed that without him, the $320 million project would freeze. 3 months later, the project was moving forward perfectly fine, minus only his name. First, Alpine Bank reviewed the new management's business plan and established the necessary operating credit lines. The original $48 million capital injection never materialized under the old terms. The entire financial framework was rebuilt under new conditions that prioritized rescue, safety, equipment, and employee retention. Before signing, my grandfather showed me the documents. "Maya, is this acceptable? That is for the restructuring trustee and the new management to decide, not me. You're not going to make it your company? If you turn it back into one person's plaything, the exact same thing will happen again. My grandfather nodded and didn't push the issue. I didn't leave the Vance family just to sit comfortably on another family's throne of power. 14 months later, the verdict was handed down in a Denver federal courtroom. It wasn't just about what happened on the summit. The money funneled through Mercer Media, the fraudulent invoice approvals, the texts ordering the deletion of evidence, and the subsequent obstruction of justice, disparate records all connected to a single focal point of liability. The principal defendant, Nolan Vance, is sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. Nolan's defense team had argued that the summit incident was merely an emotional marital dispute, entirely unrelated to the financial fraud. The verdict did not conflate the two. The decision to abandon a person in a deadly environment, the decision to slash the company's safety budget, and the decision to erase the records each was evaluated separately and factored into the sentencing as deliberate choices made by the same individual. Nowhere did it state that endangering a life was a lesser crime just because it happened within a marriage. The judge's voice echoed. The defendant, Riley Mercer, is sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Riley's defense that she was merely following Nolan's orders was flatly rejected. Altering invoices, deleting posts, her exact phrasing in the snowcat sitting next to someone and making your own choices were judged as two entirely separate things. Throughout the reading of the verdict, Nolan didn't look at me once. Riley no longer referred to herself as the CEO's fiancé. Both were also slapped with massive civil restitution and damages. The verdict didn't ask for their remorse. The timestamps, the dollar amounts, and the digital footprints they left behind were more than enough. As I walked out of the courtroom, Davis handed me 2 documents to sign. One was the certified divorce decree, which his office had been holding. The other was the payout schedule for the civil damages awarded to me personally. It wasn't company assets. It wasn't sterling money. It was money I received for the damages inflicted upon me, and I had the right to decide how to use it. I donated every single cent to the Winter Mountain Rescue Fund. Davis checked just to be sure. You have the option to inject this into the company's restructuring capital. Legally, Maya, you are free to choose. The company survived through the legal process. I am returning this money to the vehicle that came for me that night. The entire amount, then? Yes. Please record that this was my choice. The foundation's clerk read the receipt aloud. Donor name, Maya Sterling. Purpose of funds, Winter Mountain Rescue Vehicles and Emergency Communication Equipment. Is this correct? I verified my name and the purpose with my own ears, then signed. With every deposit, I would receive expense reports for vehicle maintenance and phone system upgrades. It was a system that translated numbers into the next rescue, completely detached from anyone's arbitrary goodwill. The purpose was carved into the record. On the night I gripped that red emergency phone at the summit, if the rescue team hadn't come, I might not have seen the morning. This donation wasn't paying off a debt of gratitude. It was the funding to launch a snowcat for the next person standing in front of a locked, freezing door. As I finished the paperwork at the foundation's office, the clerk looked at me apologetically. Miss Sterling, someone claiming to be family of the Vances is waiting outside. I put my pen down. They said since they can't meet with you in person, they at least want you to accept a message from Nolan. I do not need the message. The clerk stopped talking. I am no longer in a position where I have to wait for a reply from the Vance family. Understood. I will pass that along. The receipt clearly bore the name Maya Sterling. I verified the letters and tucked the document into my bag. Outside, Captain Miller, having finished inspecting the rescue vehicles, was reviewing a checklist with a squad member. The voice logging the checks was as concise as it had been that night. I didn't stop walking, stepping through the open doors and out into the crisp, biting air, finally stepping out into the sunlight.